Good morning. My name is Holly and I'm the board administrator for today's work session, November 2nd, 2023. This is a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. And if we do have any Teams interruptions due to the outage, the statewide outage, we will reschedule this meeting. Chair Stevens.
Okay, Holly, I think that was you tossing it to me. My signal's a little intermittent here, so hopefully that's not part of the Teams issue. So I will plow forward here and assume everything's going to work fine technically. So I call this meeting to order, and this is a work session for the board with the agency staff. Attendees from the public are welcome to observe. The chat function as well as the attendee cameras and microphones will be turned off. If you would like to submit public comment, please do that through the Aviation website for the December 7th, 2023 board meeting. And with that, I will turn it back over to Holly, the board administrator, for a roll call.
Thank you, Chair Stevens. All right, so Catherine Stevens.
Present.
Sarah Lucas.
Present.
Steve Nagy. Steve Nagy? Okay, is Steve Nagy excused for the record? Excused absence for the record, or should I give him a call?
I'm looking on here to see. I don't see him. I have not heard from him regarding this meeting attendance.
Okay, I'll reach out to Steve. Bill Brock,
Here.
Jeff Pritchard,
Present.
Jim Knight.
Present.
Okay, we are at quorum here and roll call is complete.
Okay, thank you very much, Holly. And today we are having a presentation from Tony Beach, the state airports manager, with an overview of programs. Tony.
Okay, well, thank you for setting that up. And yeah, I think everyone knows who I am, but Tony Beach, state airports manager with the Department of Aviation. And yeah, I'm going to give you an overview of our airports program. And I'm going to share my screen.
He just arrived.
Okay, does everyone see the title slide? State
Yes, we
airports?
do.
Okay, great. Okay, so I can't see you anymore, so just speak up if you have any questions. And our airports program, so this part of the agency is all about the state-owned or state-operated airports, and we have 28 of them throughout the state of Oregon. We have 7 along the coast. We have 5 in the valley. We have 8 airports in the Cascade Mountain Range, 2 in the Gorge, 2 in Central Oregon, and 4 in Eastern Oregon. And this is just a map with the location of the 28 airports. And of course, the 28 airport names are listed to the left. This map was taken from the Oregon Aviation Plan, version 6. This plan is on our website at oregon.gov/aviation. And it is a slightly edited version of the map that I have just made a couple of changes to make one correction for a airport that is no longer owned by the state or operated by the state, and a different airport that is. So slightly updated version of that, just for clarity. Otherwise, the full document is on the website. These categories are from the Oregon Aviation Plan, and there's a link that I've included in this presentation. It's also included in that plan that explains what those categories are, and I'm going to go into that here in just another minute. So we've talked a lot about the 28 state-owned airports, but really a minor technicality. 9 of them are leased through different agreements with various agencies, federal and state agencies, that we lease these airports and operate and maintain them, but we do not own the land. So those 9 airports are highlighted yellow, and you can see most of them are in the Cascade Mountain Range, as well as in Southeast and Central Oregon, with one on the coast within state parks at Nehalem Bay State Park. Going into the functional roles from the Oregon Aviation Plan, there are 5 categories with functional roles. We don't have any Category 1 commercial service airports. We have one. Hang on 1 second. Okay. We have one Category 2 airport. That's the Aurora State Airport. It's also our only controlled airport. And then we have one Category 3 airport at Bandon. The rest are Category 4s, but most of them are Category 5 airports. Of the 28 state-owned airports, 12 of them are eligible for federal funding. They're included in the FAA's National Plan of Integrated Airport System. And those 12 are underscored or underlined. And then I've also included just a little gold star in the map to show where those federally eligible airports are located. This image is taken from the FAA's latest 2023-2027 National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems. And so this map is showing all of the federally eligible airports, public use airports in Oregon. And the stars on this image are just showing the state-owned of those. And so those 12 are shown are listed on the left. We have one national airport, the Aurora Airport, and the rest are local basic with one unclassified, and that's Wasco. And so that means the Wasco Airport, while it's eligible for projects, does not receive entitlements. The categories are a little different than what we have in our Oregon Aviation Plan. So I've just listed out what the FAA's categories for non-primary airports are. We don't have any primary airports, so I've only included the non-primary. These are based on the existing activity at the airports, the number and types of based aircraft, and the volume and types of flights, along with some other geographic factors and public interest functions. And that's taken straight from the FAA's current National Plan Integrated Airport System. Kristen had shared this organization chart for the agency in our October meeting in Hillsborough. And I am just including it here to highlight what our airports work group is. We are 6.33 FTE, including myself, the airports manager. We have 2 airport operations specialists, 2 airport maintenance specialists, 1 leasing and contract specialist, and 0.33 part-time seasonal maintenance. And the 6.33 of us maintain, operate, and administer leases and manage all of our 28 state airports. Just going into those functions a little bit, I am responsible for managing the airport's staff and our programs. I'm also responsible for managing the 28 state airports and their equitable treatment and prioritization to meet the needs of our grant assurances, communities, the airport users, and the state airports system. Responsible for airport projects and improvements, planning, grants, SOAR, and other funding, and setting aviation policies, airport rules, and standards, rates, and fees. Is there a question? Okay. I'm also responsible for the airport's compliance, and that's compliance with our lease and other agreements, grant assurances, federal, state, and local requirements, permits, maybe local code or other requirements, safety, protection against incompatible land uses, and aviation advocacy. I'm also responsible for outreach, public and multi-agency coordination, resiliency, and emergency response for our state airports. The operations staff are responsible for inspecting the state airports, their compliance, and that's compliance with airport rules, agreements, standards, our grant assurances, and other permits or requirements. They're responsible for safety, reporting, coordination of maintenance, and day-to-day operations at the airports. Operations staff are responsible for answering pilot and community questions, addressing noise complaints, and other outreach. And they're responsible for administering the state's Aero volunteer program. And Aero stands for Airport Information Reporting for Oregon. And they are responsible for operational level of resiliency and emergency coordination and response. In addition to the state-owned airports, our operations staff also inspect and update all public use airport master records in Oregon. So every year, our staff are inspecting a third of all of the public use airports. And so they're on a 3-year rotation where they're inspecting every single one of our public use airports in Oregon. They update the master record, and that's what updates things like the chart supplement and the facility directive. We also do private airstrip site inspections. We have a lot of private airports, and anytime there's a request to establish a new private airport, our staff go and do the inspections and complete a report that is then used by local planning for the compliance and use. And then our staff assist with airspace evaluations and other agency programs as well. Maintenance is responsible for repairs and ongoing preventative maintenance and correcting discrepancies, as well as vegetation control, snow removal, and other facility and equipment maintenance at our state airports. And they are providing a new level of service with airport painting and obstruction removal, as well as enhanced herbicide application across all 28 airports. In May, we did a work session on our leasing program, and just an overview of our leasing program. Our leasing staff administers all state airport agreements, including 256 land lease agreements, 24 through the fence access agreements, and administration includes tracking, lease tracking, document prep, billing, lease assignments, amendments, renewals, holdovers, expirations, new leases, a lot of correspondence, and of course, compliance. Just a look at some of our key milestones or accomplishments. We have secured funding and have set projects into motion to preserve critical airport infrastructure. This includes the Aurora runway and other pavement, Cape Blanco runway, the Prospect runway, and the Toledo apron. We are prioritizing safety, including obstruction removal and public protection and surface incident mitigation at our airports. We are implementing a more efficient use of the very limited staff and financial resources that we have to, again, to equitably manage and operate and maintain all 28 airports. We have processed the backlog of lease issues, refined processes for lease assignments and renewals and holdovers. And we are implementing an improved level of maintenance with markings and obstruction removal and facilities maintenance. We are communicating better expectations regarding noise complaints and noise abatement procedures. And we are improving our airport user and community communication in person and through GovDelivery. But with that, the work is not done. There's still a lot of work to do, and we are still working on funding to do a project to preserve and maintain the Oak Ridge runway. We are continuing to improve outreach, coordination, and expectation setting with airport users and our local communities. We are establishing a driver's training program and we'll be implementing a rule for VPDs at the Aurora State Airport. We're still working on refinements to leasing airport development processes and continuing efforts on seasonal obstruction removal. We are working on improvements to the Aero volunteer program. and we'll be including public coordination and input in that process, as well as in our airport policy rule and minimum standards review and updates. We'll be including public input on those processes as well. We also have a need to update or to perform airport appraisals and update our rents and fees. And we will be catching up on prior approved SOAR projects and prior to introducing any new non-urgent applications, because we do have a backlog of approved SOAR projects that we do not have funding for. Have been communicating that those will not be going away. Those are approved by the board, and when funding is available, I am looking to catch up on those projects before we introduce anything else. 2024, of course, will be a very heavy construction year with projects at Siletz Bay, Aurora, Prospect, Cape Blanco, and a few other airports. And that's a quick overview of the airports program. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Tony. If you all have questions, just use the raise your hand function, and I've got a couple for you, actually, Tony. It looks like you're using some of Kenji's pictures, his drone pictures. Can you share your slide again and kind of tell us which airports we're looking at there?
Definitely, yeah. I should have included a caption. This photo was AI generated. So, gave a prompt for flying a desk. I thought that was appropriate. Okay, so this is the Prospect State Airport, and this was taken in the summer of 2023. This shows the relocation of the threshold on the runway 2 end. You can see a little bit where that the previous runway identifier was blacked out. And believe it or not, this was actually yellow paint, but it has kind of bleached in the sun. So not quite sure what paint that was, but I was surprised to find it was turned white. So that that runway was relocated, that threshold was relocated because of worsening conditions within the pavement, and especially some pretty severe cracking on that the very south end. This is a photo of the Lebanon State Airport, and this was taken very recently, I believe in September, just after maintenance staff had painted the entire airfield, and it just looks fantastic in my opinion. Yes, and Kenji did take all of these drone photos. And then let's see, this was a photo at the Cascade Lock State Airport, not taken with the drone. This was taken back in 2020. By, I believe, Don Hankwitz, and that was Charlie operating the tractor. And I took this photo out at the Milano State Airport. This was during PMP back in the summer of 2020. And that's it.
All right, very good. I love that we have all of these pictures from the drone now. Let's see, Sarah, did you have a question?
Yes, good morning, Tony. Thank you for that overview. I definitely appreciate you have a very limited staff for the work effort you put forward. And so great to see all of the improvements in our capabilities, painting and reworking leases. I did have a question for you regarding the Aero program. I know that has been a topic of discussion lately, and I was wondering who is charging up that program currently. When you click on the website, the page is under construction, so I'm just curious if people wanted to reach out, what process they would do that through.
Yeah, so our operations specialist, Don Richcrete, is our volunteer coordinator, and he's out of the office the last 2 weeks, but that is something he's going to be working on this winter, is revamping and really developing a more robust volunteer program than what we've had.
Okay. I know you would agree that we just can't pass on opportunities to work with stakeholders. And I would rather be in the business of discussing what they can do rather than what they cannot do. So when we do have people who want to be involved, I hope we can take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right, and Jim.
Thank you. Tony, just a real quick question, and you may not know the answer to it, but you mentioned privately owned airports. How many are there in the state? It's just a question of curiosity. How many privately owned airports are there?
I would have to do some digging to find that number. We probably have that somewhere in our directory, but most of them are private use. And once we do our site inspection for a private airport, we don't really go back and re-inspect or do anything unless there's something permitting wise or triggered by the county or the city, whichever it may be. So I don't have a lot of data immediately available, but we could probably do some digging and find what we have.
Does it take up very much of staff time of managing the process of inspecting of the private airports?
No, we've probably done a half dozen, maybe a dozen in my 3.5 years. And
Okay.
and really it's for establishing new private use airports on privately owned land.
Thank you very much.
And I have a follow-up for you on that. So the private airstrip site inspections, how often do you do those? And is there a charge for that?
I'm sorry, was that for private?
Yeah, for the private airstrip site inspections.
Mhm. Yeah, so only when the application is submitted from the county for the development or use of a private property for an airstrip. That's what triggers our site inspection, and we only do it that one time. So we don't go back out and revisit like we do for all of the public use airports.
Okay, and then just a point of process. So the Q&A session is for board members, but I'm happy to forward those questions. So George, I see you have your hand up. If you can put your question in the chat, then I'll be happy to answer that for you or have it answered for you. And then I got another question for you, Tony, and that is the Aero program. Can you go into a little more detail on that program and then tell us which are the airports that are the most challenging to either get your staff to or have someone in the Aero program inspect?
Sure. Yeah, the Airport Information Reporting for Oregon is a program we've had volunteers. We've had what we call caretakers at airports. We have folks at like Prospect. We have people, pilots or members of communities that they're interested or want to perform maintenance or caretake for airports all over Oregon, and generally we have more volunteers at the more rural or remote airports where our staff can't get to readily. So we don't have really any volunteers at our valley airports. And the program was really set up like in the name, it's information reporting. So it helps keep us informed. A lot of caretakers just go look at who's tied down, who flies in, just keeping us informed what conditions we have at our airports. And then several of the volunteers do maintenance like mowing, other vegetation control, and that's what I think the program has been historically. And so we have had a lot of interest in improvements to the airports, especially with the agency's financial limitations. We've had a lot of communities wanting to reinvest into the airports, and Cottage Grove is a good example of this, where the communities come together and raise funds for the installation of a pilot lounge, as well as some other seating and kind of landscaping improvements at the airport. At Cascade Locks, we've had sign-in station installed and another just a picnic table one of the biggest challenges when it comes to our NIPIAS, our federally obligated airports, is improvements where maybe it will trigger an airport layout plan update, or if there's any other kind of environmental or NEPA considerations. That's one of the biggest challenges. So what we're looking at in developing the Aero Volunteer program is, as Sarah mentioned, what are things we can work on and where, and how can we establish a process so we can do that, because we do want to leverage and work with our local communities, and I really do appreciate that engagement from the local communities and interest they have in maintaining and supporting their airports. Did I answer
Great,
your whole question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I'm also curious. Okay, so who can participate? And is there like a training that you go through to be able to work in that capacity?
Yeah, and training is something that Dawn has been putting together. We've implemented a kind of a small version of training, and I think that's something that we're going to pull from our driver's training for Aurora as well, but scale back for non-controlled airports. And it really can be anyone. We do have a form that they can submit to us that anyone can submit, and we and for instance, at the Mackenzie Bridge State Airport, also at the Hawaii State Airport, we've had groups fly in and organize work parties where people fly in from all over the state or even all over the region to perform some maintenance. And then the other part of your question, Hawaii is definitely by far the hardest to access. So people like Bob Ament, the retired airport manager out of Vail, Oregon, has in the past, he's been great about just sending us photos, flying into the airport, keeping us updated with what the condition is, and also doing some cleanup.
That's great. And can we find that form on the website then if people are interested? And
Yeah, it should be. I did just receive one yesterday, but I'm going to double check. I took a note from Sarah's comment about the webpage being under construction.
So to just real quick to clarify, Catherine, the form is available. It's somewhat difficult to find because when you look, you want to look through the Aero and volunteer links, and those are the ones that are under construction and lead you to a dead end. But the form is there. It's just to have to do a little more digging at the moment.
okay. Good to
So
know. I
certainly,
guess I'm surprised, Tony, that it's the Valley airports that you have more trouble getting volunteers for. So yeah.
I don't know that it's more trouble. It's just we don't have as much of a need because we're based in the Valley and we have such convenient access to them.
Yeah. Okay. And then, yeah, thank you for the additional detail on that. Appreciate it. George with the Bully with the FAA is asking, can you share the 3-year capital improvement plan or the 3-year capital improvement plan for UAO? And he's curious if any projects address the action items from the runway safety action plan.
Okay. A little bit outside of the scope, I think, of this overview. There are a lot of details we could go into about projects, but we have just refreshed our capital improvement plan for Aurora, and that's still ongoing with the FAA. We haven't received our updated list from them yet.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? I see Jeff Richard's hand is up. Jeff?
Yes, thank you. Tony, first of all, I want to say thank you for all the detail in this presentation. I think it's going to be very beneficial, not just for the board members, but for our community and the public. Couple questions. First, is there any reason why Oak Ridge isn't considered one of the airports that can receive funding from the feds? You know, with all of the conversation about Oak Ridge and the heavy use in the summertime by our federal partners, is there a way for a reclassification or assistance with that? I know there was some talk about collaboration. Can you expand on that? And then I'll ask my second question.
Yeah. So 2 things. I don't know that the airport isn't eligible for any federal funding. In fact, Kenji can go into a little more detail on a grant, a FEMA grant that the agency is applying for federal funding for improvements of the airport. The Oak Ridge Airport is not included in the FAA's National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems, which identifies airports eligible for federal funding. And I did include, I can share my screen again. So, sorry, bear with me 1 second. Okay. So from slide 7 of the presentation, the categories and the criteria I've listed kind of generally, but what the FAA is looking for is a 10-based aircraft for an airport to be included as a NIPIAS airport. But there are geographic factors, and that includes proximity to other NIPIAS airports, and so there are some other considerations there as well. But it's really the number of aircraft, the number of flights, and the activity that airport generates, and then it's still the FAA's discretion of its inclusion into their program. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And then, with regards to the Aero volunteer opportunities, and looking at the website, the ODAV website, it does say under construction, under volunteer, specifically for Aero. Hopefully staff has come up with some sort of descriptor on what that is. Being a administrator of a volunteer organization, the more we can put up about how integral these volunteer activities are, will only lead to attracting more volunteers, which in this day and age is becoming increasingly difficult. Is there materials that are being developed for that? And if so, what is the time frame for adding that information to the valuable website that ODAV has?
Yeah, so when we're taking a programmatic approach to the volunteer program, we're looking at everything from tracking all of our volunteers, keeping our contact information up to date, having a better network throughout Oregon of who has signed up and who's accessible for which airports, as well as allowing for them to coordinate in certain work parties or efforts and maintenance with us on our airports, so we can make sure we're issuing NOTAMs so that they're being safe out on the airfields. And communication is key, as Sarah and Catherine mentioned, establishing parameters that we can all work within, so that volunteers are well aware of things that we can work on, and then the processes and how we can work through those. So I am looking at, we're aiming for this winter, by the end of this winter, before staff are busy with the next mowing and painting season, to have these changes implemented on our website, and then kind of roll those out with all our different communities.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Additional questions for Tony? Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty short work session, but that's okay. I do appreciate all of the detail, Tony. I think I always learn something new every time I see your presentation, so that's great. Okay, if there are no other questions.
Just a comment. Thank you, Tony, for the presentation. I think it's also great. There's a lot of new board members and some of us who have even been around for a while and been involved with the state, but it's always just great to kind of get some additional background on the breadth of the state's asset ownership and what it takes to operate them. So thank you.
Well, thank you all. And, you know, there's a common saying in aviation, when you've seen one airport, you've seen one airport, and 28 of them, it makes it interesting. It keeps us very, very busy, and it is really exciting. Very happy to be with the Department of Aviation and trying to improve these airports and meet the airport needs for Oregon. So thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tony. Kenji, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to pop in here with before we adjourn.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. One thing that was mentioned was the EDA grant, which is actually the Economic Development Administration with the Department of Commerce. And that's the grant we're looking for Oak Ridge. We hired a consultant. We're actually getting figures, and then we will go through the process of that application. And Michelle, I know you're on board. We will get you that in time for all of the processes that we all need to go through. So just want to let you know about that. One of the other things that I want to mention to everybody on this call, board members, as well as the folks joining from the public, you will be sending out an email to you requesting information about any education or workforce development programs that you might be aware of, because one of the things that we're going to be doing is creating an inventory. We had a very successful conversation with AOPA and a few other organizations, and we're going to be speaking with CTEC as well as some other community colleges as well, and just really trying to create that list so then we can move into a workforce development / symposium for 2024 or 2025. So look out for that. We're waiting for the education@odav.oregon.gov email address to be ready before we send out that email, but you'll see that through Gov Delivery, and board members will be getting emails directly as well. So I just want to give you a heads up on that. And that's it.
Awesome. Very good. Thanks, Kenji. Appreciate that update. Okay, well then we're going to give people back some time today. Thank you, staff and Kenji, for putting this together for us today. I think it's good to hear all about what you guys are working on. So our next board meeting will be on December 7th. And public comment will be accepted at that time. So look for those, the public notice in the agenda for those meetings that will be sent out in a timely manner. So with that, we will close this meeting. Adjournment.
Thank
Great
you,
to see
Catherine.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Meeting has been, the recording is ended.